Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions, and today we're going to be going into how to create a Maybach music style track inside Studio One. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to do this.
Maybach music.
Yeah, so we're gonna do that all inside Studio One. Before we get started, I wanted to say what's up to some of the new subscribers. We got Mohammed Mursal, Franco Crackhouse. That's a fucking really scary name. I don't know what you guys are doing over there in Studio One. We got Richard Allison II and Sound Prince Music. I see you with them Sean Kemps, boy. So what we're going to do today, well, first, I mentioned those guys so you could all sub them up. I already did. Let's go ahead and follow each other, and support each other, using this program. You could learn something from everybody, and let's build a community, Okay, so Maybach music style vibe. It is the epitome of the mantra here at the channel. Keep it simple, don't be basic. Let's talk about a little bit about the actual records that we're trying to get the vibe of, because we're not doing remakes on this channel. So the Maybach music 1, 2, and 3, what those actual records were, they were samples. Justice League did those. Shout outs to Justice League. And the way that they would work on those records, like a lot of people who sample in the industry, is they would sample them and replay them. That makes it a lot easier, to work with the music. It also enables you to retain more of your money because it's not a direct sample of the master. It's a interpolation. You can get a little bit more royalties like that, depending on the deal that you work out when the label clears it, or so on and so forth. But having to do these beats, this is a request from the homie D-Loc. Shout out to D-Loc. He's always hitting me up. He's thirsty for knowledge. I like that. He wanted to know how to do one of these type of beats. Me being, from Miami and working around there with a lot of artists, this was a really requested style for a long time, and people still want to use it. So I actually got kind of good at it. At first, it's very intimidating because when you listen to the original tracks, there's so many layers going on. There's so many changes. The drums don't sound, the drums sound like, how am I ever going to get my drums to sound like that? And it's just all a matter of understanding a little bit more about music and about instruments and how they are played. I had the opportunity to make a project with a band, make a hip hop project with a band. So I had I had a drummer at my disposal, saxophone player, trombone player, guys who played the keys, guys who played bass. And the whole time I was recording that project, what I was obsessed with was watching what they were doing with their hands, with the instruments. And what I was keeping in mind was, how am I going to be able to replicate that on a piano roll? So I'm going to be showing you a little bit about what I've learned in that. So you guys are going to want to pay attention. This first tutorial is only, we're only going to work on the chords, because there's just a lot of complex, it's not complex, but there's a lot of simple nuances to get this sound right. And I'm not going to be able to do it in one whole tutorial. So with the chords, if you listen to the first section that I have, we started out with just it doesn't look simple. And believe me, I'm not talking down to anybody when I say that this is simple, but this is a really simple progression. If you see, it's just, first of all, we're working at 84 beats per minute straight time. It's a simple 4-bar progression. There's actually only five. Chords in there, but this is what you have. This is what it sounds like.
Maybach music.
One of the reasons why I love Studio One, why I stayed with Studio One, was how easy it is to build chords in this program. Okay, when I was first starting out, I was trying to figure out chord progressions. It seemed like the craziest, most complicated thing to me. Like, I still don't play an instrument. If somebody handed me one, I could tool around on it and figure something out, but I'm not going to be able to keep time with anybody. But I can write music, I can program music. And if you're working in this DAW and you're not trying to learn an instrument, that should be your goal. You should be approaching this from the perspective that you're a programmer. You program melodies, you write melodies. It's like you're the new instead of using sheet music, we're using a piano roll, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just as creative as sitting there and learning how to write it on a sheet. So when I start out making a chord progression, rather than trying to play the chords in a rhythm because I don't have them all memorized and stuff, I build it step by step. And this is the easiest method that you're going to get good sounding chord progressions. Forget what you've learned so far. If you use Studio One, this is easy. So the first thing that I do is I just get, a simple rhythm. Quick lesson on chords. Your basic chords are comprised of 3 notes. You have a root note, a third, and a fifth. Don't worry too much right now for the purpose of this lesson of understanding what those things mean, but know their proper names so that as we continue to do tutorials together, you can build your musical vocabulary. So you have your root note, which that's what the name of the chord is, right? An F minor chord, the root note is an F, I'm sorry. If it's a A major chord, the root note is an A. Then you have 2 more notes inside the chord. You have your third and your fifth. And I'm going to show you how to find your third and your fifth by only knowing the root. So the first thing that I do is I lay down my root notes. And when you're making, a Maybach style vibe, Ross was really good with adding a luxurious sound to hip hop. And that kind of comes from an up and down movement. And when I mean up and down, I mean up and down, up, and then a little bit further down. And then you go up a little bit more, and then you go back down, and then you go up. So, honestly, the way that I built this, I didn't play anything. I just clicked this note in, and then I clicked this note in, and then I clicked this note in, and then I listened. So I had this. Originally what I did was it started out like this. And then that's really basic. So what I'll do is I'll play this melody on loop, and then I'll just kind of bump notes around until I get something that I like. Once you get your root notes down to the point where it's something that you could hum, Like once it has a hummability factor, now you know that you got something you could build a song off of. So now, once you get your root notes down, now you want to find your third and your fifths for each chord. All right, now this shit is super simple. All you got to do, hold down Alt and click and drag a note to copy it on the piano roll. Okay, and in order to find the third, right? If you start on F to find the third note, I'm sorry. The first thing you want to do is make sure you have your scale selected. Okay. Justice League, hip hop, you're pretty much safe in the natural minor. Then you want to make sure you have this clicked. That way, these blue lights come on, and that shows you all the notes that you're able to use in a scale. A scale is just 7 notes starting with your root note, which I'm using F sharp as my root note. And then what it is as long as you play these notes, everything will be in tune. So this is how you stay in key. This is how you stay in the key of F sharp minor, which is what we're working on. So when you want to make a song, you pick your scale, you lay down the root notes of your chords, and then you find, and then you fill out your chords. So here I have, here I'm going to show you how to find your thirds and your fifths. So we just copy, and your third is 1, 2. So here's your first note, second, third, fourth, fifth. And you do the same thing with your next one. First note, second, third, fourth, fifth. First note, second, third, fourth, fifth. All right. And then, you just listen to what you got. That's how you build chord progressions. It is that easy. First note, second, third, fourth, fifth. 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 What do we got? Let's listen. What? It's a real chord progression. Super simple. I mean, dude, that took me 2 minutes. You can do this too. First note, second, third, fourth, fifth. Just remember that. And as long as this is what's really important. As long as you have this box clicked and you have your scale, and you lay out your root notes, that's all you got to do to build chords. These are called triad chords. They're the basic versions of all these chords. Now, a Ross beat in this Maybach style, it's the epitome of the mantra of the channel. Keep it simple, but don't be basic. Okay, so we have a simple chord progression here right now. This is not a complex progression. This is very simple, but we're not going to be basic. So when we're thinking about Ross and the whole luxurious vibe and the sophisticated vibe, the way that you add sophistication to your music is you add more notes to the chords. Okay, and the way to do that is the first thing you want to do is you want to have you want to add some bass notes, especially when you're using piano. And by bass notes, I literally mean notes that are playing, in the bass register of the piano. So you highlight all your root notes, hold down Alt, drag them a few octaves below. Let's listen to what we got. I want to go a little bit further. If you hold down Shift and press down while all of those are highlighted, it'll drop all your notes a whole octave down. It's a nice pro tip. There you go. See, now it sounds like you almost know how to play piano, and all you did was click boxes, man. Next thing is, so we got bass. Now it sounds like there's two hands on the piano. Okay, and that's basically what we're trying to fill out. Is we're trying to make it sound like someone is playing the piano. So the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna add sophistication to this. Now, those samples that Justice League and them are using to get that raw sound, they're like people who are they're like jazz samples, things like that. So I just know from studying music that, you know, in jazz and R&B, they don't just use triads, they use ninths and sevenths. So remember what I was telling you about first, thirds, and fifths. Well, in order to get, you know, an R&B sound or a jazz sound, we use ninth chords and seventh chords. Which to have a ninth chord, all you got to do is add the ninth note to the chord from within the scale. So just follow me. I know that sounds a little complex, but just pay attention to the piano roll. So we're at 5 here because remember we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so all you do is hold down Alt. You got 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and an easy thing to remember is if you're making chords, just click in every other note. You know, 1 skip, 2 skip, 3 skip, 4 skip, 5, and then a ninth is just a chord with 5 notes. So check this out. You hear how much richer and fuller the ninth is? That's how we're going to get sophistication. So, you know, I made this one a ninth. 5, 6, 7. That's a seventh. Seventh has 4 notes in it. Then I wanted to go back to this being the same chord, and this is all just stuff I did with trial and error. You know, first it was all sevenths. And then I was like, you know what, this sounds nice, but I really want to take these F chords and really fill them out, and that's how you know, I made the decision to use ninths. If you're wondering, like, why would you go that far? It was just through the process of building it. So, you know, now you could see we have something like this, and we can go ahead and, you know, let's go ahead and listen to what we got. All right, that's starting to sound really good. You know, the notes are all there. It's starting to sound very sophisticated. The next thing that I did was this is something I do with all these types of chord progressions. Is if you see like the way that how far apart these notes are, this top note from this bottom note and this top note from this bottom note, to play that with your hand on a piano would be sort of difficult. And what musicians do to make to play these chords but make them more manageable is they use a process called inversion, and it's where they'll take one note from one octave that's far away, but play it in a higher or a lower octave to make it easier for their fingers to reach. And the way that you make inversions in Studio One, and inversions, man, it's everything. Like this is how you make your stuff sound like you actually played it. the way that you make an inversion in Studio One is like, okay, you've got this note right here. You see that it's really far away. Remember what I told you about how to move octaves? You hold down Shift and you press, down or up. It's just like, okay, this note here, this looks really far away, so I'm gonna bump that up. And this note looks really far away, I'm gonna bump that up. And this one looks really far away, I'm gonna bump that up. And you just start messing around with things until you get until you get something that you like. And that's literally, like, you see the way I was just messing around. That's how I found the final progression. And that's all you have to do to make, quote unquote complex musical progression. If you start doing this and just stick with it, and mess around with it, you can make a chord progression in 15 minutes, something that's really musical and really fancy. The next thing that you need to do, especially when you're working with a piano VST, is you need to adjust where your notes are being triggered, because when people play piano, remember, we're replicating the sound of a player with this tutorial. So when people play piano, they don't all hit these keys at the same time. If you look at the shape of your hand, and the way that you would strike a piano, there's no way that you could play them all at the same time. So in order to replicate the sound of a piano player playing, is I go down to the smallest resolution. If I'm in straight time, I use 64. If I'm in double time, I use 32. So you go down to 164, and you take your top note and you move it all the way over 1/64th. Then you want to hold Shift and drag the next notes, and just kind of build them up like a staircase. And what that's going to do is that's going to create it's going to create a roll effect, right? So listen to what you have now. You hear how much different that sounds from the next chord? Okay, so now this is a little tedious, I know, but it's better than taking lessons for 6 years on how to play piano. So check this out. So you just, you go through after you went ahead and you got your chords down, and you do this, and you don't, and this is something that it doesn't have to, you don't want each roll, each strum to be the same. You don't have to really dial in and make sure that this strum looks exactly the same as this strum, because remember, if you were playing this on a piano, there's no way that you would get the that same effect. So that's all going to add to the realism of what you're doing here. The second thing that you're going to want to realize is that when people play piano, they don't hit the keys at the same exact velocity, like when you click in a melody. Okay, so that's another thing that you're gonna have to tweak. And what I do to get a seemingly random effect is I'll just click, a few notes out of a chord, really just this randomly. And I'm holding down shift as I click those so that they all stay highlighted. And I'll just bump those down a little bit. And then I'll take, some of these and, bump them up a little bit. And then I'll take the top notes and bump them down just a little bit. And then this way now you have, especially if you have a good piano VST that's been multi-sampled and, has a lot of dynamic range. Now you can really hear the difference, and you go from having something really stiff to something that sounds like it's played. Go ahead and check it out. The next thing that I added to the song was a string section, because in these type of vibes, when you had these older songs from the 70s and stuff, there was always a piano, there was a string section. I just try to think of what other instruments were in the studio when they made these big records. So I just use a string patch out of Omnisphere. You can use any strings that you want. It doesn't have to be some fancy ass Omnisphere. You can make this whole vibe with sound fonts. If you didn't have it, I don't want you guys. That's why I'm not taking time to show the plugins, because I don't want you all to get hung up on, oh, I need this plugin to sound like Zebra. Like, dude, you can do this with any plugin. So these are some strings I had over in Omnisphere, and all I did was I took and I copied and just pasted it over. You want to remove the bass notes because you don't want those clashing with the piano notes. And now I have this. Okay, so for the intro, I used the full string set. All the notes from the chords from the piano, but in the verses I switched it up because there was going to be there's going to be a rapper on it, and there's going to be drums and stuff. So what I did was I took those extra two notes that I put in when we were making things more sophisticated. I just deleted those out here. I deleted a few notes out here. I just basically playing around with it. When I came to the end of the string section, I just played around with the scale and added some higher notes, and all I did was click, nothing crazy. The way that I found this was I wanted an effect where I wanted that effect at the end of the bar, so everything just went up, And the way that I did that was I just stacked the chord. So here you have your F sharp down here. I added another F sharp. I skipped the third note in the chord because I felt like I didn't need it. It was a little too much. I put the fifth note in the chord in, and then I did the same thing to get that ninth. Just 1, 2, 1, 2, and put those in. And that's how I wound up with this cool string effect. So yeah, this is how I went ahead and created the chords. I went and built everything off of this. Everything else came together really fast. I'm going to show you all that in the next part of the tutorial. I want you all to kind of sit with this. I wanted this to be a separate video because it can apply to so many other different types of songs. You know, if you realize what I'm giving you here, this is this is really a crash course in music theory, and you can always go back to this anytime you want to make a chord progression in Studio One and use this method, and you'll see, you'll be making songs so fast because you have this knowledge now. So once again, I want to say thank you to the new subscribers. I want to remind you guys to keep it simple, but don't be basic. Go ahead, don't be scared, be social, sub up my subscribers, communicate, and let me know what else you guys want to see. I'm going to finish dropping the rest of these parts in the tutorial very soon. This is Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions, and I'll see you guys on the next one.